Hello dear students! Today we will have a lecture with the topic Energy Metabolism during Physical Exercises, Dynamics of Physiological State during Physical Activities. Energy metabolism is the process of generating energy from nutrients, and the energy is expressed in the ATP. Metabolism comprises a series of interconnected pathways that can function in the presence or absence of oxygen. Aerobic metabolism converts one glucose molecule into 30 to 32 ATP molecules. Fermentation or anaerobic metabolism is less efficient than aerobic metabolism. Energy metabolism is central to life, and the main function of the respiratory system is to maintain aerobic metabolism processes in the body. For demonstration of aerobic metabolism, we can consider such kinds of sports like swimming, running, bicycling, jogging, and other cyclic types of movement. And due to these exercises can last quite a long time, sometimes 12 or 15 minutes, sometimes 1 or even more hours, without any stop or break for recovery. And this quite long exercising with quite high intensity is only possible because our organism can use and generate ATP and energy with aerobic metabolism. Anaerobic metabolism can be presented in such kinds of sports as weightlifting, middle distance running like 400 meters running, short distance swimming, powerlifting, and other kinds of sport. And the particular characteristic for anaerobic exercises is that they can last from 30-40 seconds to just a few minutes. And these anaerobic metabolism processes induce in our organism and our body a huge disturbance connected with metabolic substances such as, for example, lactic acid. Lactic acid accumulated during these very intensive exercises in muscle tissues and in skeletal muscle tissues, and it can induce not only painful sense, feeling, and psychological discomfort, but also it interfere in the nerve innervation of those working muscles. And in this case, muscle intra and intermuscular coordination could suffer, and the quality of technique of exercising could be diminished significantly too. That's why anaerobic exercising could be applied with mostly with prepared athletes, not with beginners. With experienced sportsmen who are able to control their technique and keep the quality of, for example, running or swimming with good quality. As it mentioned on the slide, with the reference down below, that you can find more information. Aerobic metabolism connected very tightly with the functioning of the respiratory system, but we should always consider functioning pulmonary or respiratory system together with cardiovascular system, because increasing intensity, increasing load on one of those particular organism system will increase proportionally functioning of the other. For example, if we start running, we increase our breathing pattern. We breathe with much more higher rate, but at the same time, simultaneously, our cardiovascular system respond for this demand and increase heart rate. That's why it's so important to know your own heart rate that is equal and optimal for your training with adequate workload. The same thing with respiratory system. If we know how many breathing actions we can make, and knowing this amount, we can control and monitor optimal level of workload that we are undergoing. And developing of aerobic metabolic system is essential not only in top level sport, but also for just ordinary people of all ages, because developing aerobic system will obviously develop our cardiovascular and respiratory system, and these two systems are essential for maintaining not only a sport performance on a high level, but also our everyday functioning and well-being. To stay healthy very often requires a high quality, a prepared cardiovascular or respiratory system. We should maintain it in a particular level in order to avoid some seasonal illnesses such as a flu, for example, because our immune system connected with metabolic reactions. And if we maintain regularly physical activity during our day or weeks, we can maintain on a high level our immune system responsiveness to some pathogenic microorganisms like viruses, for example. So this is quite an important issue, and for you as a physician, future physicians, it is important to know this universal tool, a mean to enhance in general overall health. Important to mention that after training recovery requires more time if you apply during your training session predominantly anaerobic metabolic system, because not only you applied more energy resources, but also that your body, your muscle tissue accumulated a lot of metabolic substances that should be released, washed out from your organism. Some of those substances, metabolic substances, are quite toxic, and sometimes they can provoke a pain feeling not only in your muscles but also in your liver, because liver responsible for toxic substances deactivation and utilization. That's why it's quite important not only know the level of workload that you should undergo under training conditions, but also think about your recovery. And the opposite situation, if we use our aerobic system for energy generation. There are a lot of studies that show that it's a standard procedure in different kinds of sport with different level of preparedness of athletes to apply aerobic metabolic systems training every day, 24 hours for recovery. It's normal thing. And as additional examples or evidence for you, you can not only try to find out in on the library or on an electronic database this phenomena, but also just walk around your surrounding and look what their average age of people who are making jogging in the morning, for example, or in the evening. And very often you can observe quite elder people who are trying to maintain their health, their keep be in a fit every morning. Even in this age, they can arrange this kind of training, for example, with jogging or with Scandinavian walking, and recover during 24 hours, because they use predominantly during this exercising aerobic metabolic system. Also, they maintain their health, their well-being, and it allow them to apply more oxygen during these training sessions. And this oxygen required not only for ATP regeneration and the provider of working muscles, but also for functioning on a high level other system organisms. The relative contribution of the ATP generating pathways to energy supply during exercise is determined primarily by exercise intensity and duration. Other factors influencing exercise metabolism include training status, preceding diet, sex, age, and environmental conditions. Intensity and duration. There are two main criteria that allow us to judge what kind of workload are we meeting on the training session. And these two parameters, intensity and duration, are two opposites. They are negatively correlated with each other. For example, if we go to a weightlifting gym and work with high level of workload, and we are able only perform 5 repetitions each approach, each exercise, and the duration of this exercising is quite low, quite short. Another example, for if we go to a track and field stadium and we make 100 meters runs, for example 10 times with maximal speed, maximal effort, that means that in the sum it will be 1 kilometer, 110 times 1 kilometer. So intensity maximum, but the duration quite short, 1 kilometer. But if we will perform moderate level of intensity and perform running, for example 3 times 2 kilometers, so 6 kilometers. You see, the intensity is moderate, but the duration 6 times bigger. So 6 kilometers against 1 with 100 meters running. So increasing intensity, we decrease duration. Increasing duration, we decrease intensity. And these two parameters are essentials, and I strongly recommend to pay attention to them. It's a good start for planning your training session, and it's a good way to get inside what's happening during your training session. It will facilitate your analyzing of the training session, and will allow you to make more correct conclusions and suggestions for future training sessions. Of course, other factors influence exercise metabolism, very important. For example, your training status. If you are a beginner, of course you will recover slower a little bit, because a lot of factors you should be adapting at the moment. Of course, diet is essential too, because we should always think about two parts. One, what's going on the training session, which methods we apply, how many repetitions, what the technique we applied, sport technique we applied during this training session. Of course, intensity and duration are the key factor too, but also what's happening with our organism, with our body, when we out of the gym, how we recover, in other words. And the diet is essential part for intensifying recovery, to adapt efficiently for this kind of workload. And when we come to this gym next time, we are on the super compensation phase. That means that we are stronger, for example, or we have a good stamina, higher endurance, and so on. So knowing your how much nutrient you are getting, knowing your calorie and vitamins and minerals that necessary for your well-being, knowing this information, you can facilitate significantly your recovery. Also, it should be mentioned your sleeping habits too, because if you sleep not well, or you need more time, more hours for sleeping, of course it should diminish significantly your performance on sport gym. So diet and sleep, essential parts for your recovery. If you try your best on your study and study a lot, and you use those critical hours at night for your study, reading books, working with your homeworks, and so on, of course you will limit your ability during your study day or on training. So it's not recommended. Environment conditions are essential too, because if you ecologically surrounded by, for example, smokers, people who smoke near you, and you breathe in these pollutions, you can of course diminish your recovery processes and limit your performance, not only in the sport gym, but also in any activity during your everyday. Of course, your sex means too. If you are male or female, if you're male, you can have some peculiarities in recovery in opposite to the female. Here we have a image from the Nature journal and the article concerning skeletal muscle energy metabolism during exercise. Here we have a biochemical study, and this illustration demonstrates how ATP is generated and key metabolic substances that are contributing to this production. So the utilization of extramuscular and intramuscular carbohydrate and fat fuels, along with the major sites of regulation at key enzymes and transport proteins. Also here we have a view of interactions between anaerobic and aerobic pathways and between carbohydrate and fat that ensure the ATP supply for contracting skeletal muscle. Also, this article demonstrates with the help of illustration how intramuscular and extramuscular fuel sources for exercise metabolism can be utilized by our organism during exercises. And here we have a liver, adipose tissue, and muscle tissue. All of those tissues are responsible and provide us with energy, but with a particular combination of intensity and duration. For example, muscle glycogen we can utilize during high intensity and a short period of time of duration. And the opposite situation, adipose tissue we can use as an energy source with long duration, for example marathon running, and moderate to low intensity. So just it depends on the case, depends on the situation, what kind of exercise with what kind of training design we are dealing with, and according to the situation different metabolic processes can be triggered and maintained. Also on this illustration we can see the actually how much energy this fuel source possess. Liver glycogen we can see 200 to 400 kilocalories, muscle glycogen 1000 to 3000 kilocalories, and adipose tissue 50,000 to 100,000 kilocalories. So huge amount of energy, but to extract this ATP from this energy source requires, as I told before, a particular training set, low intensity to moderate intensity, and long period of time, like a marathon running. That's why utilizing aerobic system energy production we can produce more energy, because we provide our cells of our tissue with oxygen, and oxygen is essential for generating energy by fat oxidation and applying also glycogen. Glycogen breaks down to glucose, and glucose breaks down to for regeneration of ATP. At the same article previous to this illustration you can find out the brief explanation with some references, also very interesting material. And if you have a time and would like to get more information, you can follow them and get more information. But during this illustration, we should also mention that during events lasting several minutes to hours, the oxidative metabolism of carbohydrate and fat provides almost all the ATP for contracting skeletal muscle. Even during marathon event lasting 2 to 2.5 hours, there is a primary reliance on carbohydrate oxidation, and the major intramuscular and extramuscular substrates are muscle glycogen, blood glucose derived from liver glycogenolysis, and gluconeogenesis, and from the gut when carbohydrate is ingested, and fatty acids derived from both muscle and adipose tissue triglyceride stores. These stores and the relative energy available from them are shown in figure 2 as we observed previously. So, the primary determinants of the relative contribution of these substrates to oxidative metabolism are exercise intensity and duration. I repeat again, intensity and duration is your universal tool for designing training session and workload, and applying this tool you can influence your metabolic reactions and choose what kind of tissue will predominantly used as a fuel source for energy production. As it was mentioned before, oxidative metabolism, applying oxygen, is essential for producing the biggest part of the total energy request of your organism during exercising. And again, it highlights how is important to develop and improve and maintain in a good level your cardiovascular system together with respiratory system. It will make you much more endurant and stronger, and will provide you with a good health and well-being just by applying 2 to 3 training sessions a week of, and devotion of 30 minutes in average for just walking, jogging, running will contribute a lot in your health status and training status too. Also, this article tells us interesting study concerning sex differences in exercise metabolism. They mentioned that females have a higher proportion of type 1 fibers, muscle fibers. You know, type 1 and type 2. One is devoted for work with high intensity but low duration, and type 2 more designed for working with low intensity and high duration. So females have a higher proportion of type 1 fibers and lower maximal capacity of glycolytic enzymes. So low maximal capacity of glycolytic enzymes tells us that energy production during the anaerobic processes are quite limited, and greater reliance on IMTG during exercise than males. That effects that may be related to females' higher concentration of IMTG in type 1 fibers. In addition, supplementation with estrogen in males decreases carbohydrate oxidation and increases fat oxidation during exercise. So these results suggest that females may be better suited to endurance exercise than males. So again, this is a interesting study, and this article tells us one point of view provided with some scientific knowledge and database. If you are more interested in this topic, you can visit all these references and study this approach more broad. Another area that has been investigated is the effects of menstrual phase and menstrual status on the regulation of skeletal muscle metabolism. Generally, studies examining exercise in the different phases have reported only minor or no changes in fat and carbohydrate metabolism at various exercise intensities. And again, a reference list is presented here. Additional work examining the regulation of metabolism in well-trained female participants in both phases of menstrual cycle and with varied menstrual cycles during exercise at the high aerobic and supramaximal intensities commensurate with elite sports is warranted. Interesting findings, and actually it could be applied not only with top level athletes, but also generally in any with training with various groups of runners, for example, or people who attending regularly gym. Please return to our previous slide and information concerning training status and intensity and duration. Generally, in biochemistry, there are distinguished three energy system productions. The first one is aerobic, second one is anaerobic lactic, and the third one is anaerobic alactic. And so let's go briefly and concern each of them, and if you are more interested in details, for example, which exercises could be combined with a particular energy system production, so just write down a message and I will answer you and consult you later on. The first one is aerobic system. Generally it starts from 12-15 minutes and even longer, and exercises such as running, jogging, swimming, bicycling, cross-country skiing and others are good examples when predominantly, mostly, we apply aerobic energy system production. The second one is anaerobic lactic. In scientific literature you can find another word that actually have the same meaning, describe the same metabolic processes, is glycolysis. That means that anaerobic lactic, we use no oxygen but we produce lactic acid, and we can produce lactic acid without oxygen only using glucose. So no amino acids, no fat, just glucose is utilized in order to produce ATP without oxygen consumption. That's why the name is anaerobic lactic, and because only glucose is used, this has another name, glycolysis. Examples of exercises when predominantly we use anaerobic lactic energy system production are weightlifting, sprinting when we swim or run for a short period of time, for example 30-40 seconds with high intensity. And during these exercises we accumulate in our working tissues such as skeletal muscles lactic acid in high proportion, and it interfere inter and intramuscular coordination. Sometimes it hurts, so feeling of pain, muscle pain, and feeling of burning in the muscle, stiff muscle, and also psychological discomfort could accompany these symptoms. But this training in this zone, when anaerobic lactic system is activated, we can actually indirectly influence our aerobic system capacity too. So these two are connected but indirectly, and those negative feelings and symptoms could be experienced by trainees not so acute when they are more experienced with this kind of training, because the phenomena goes on with the name lower tolerance. The more trainees are under anaerobic lactic system training, the more they are adapted for these kind of conditions, the less acute feelings of discomfort they meet in this kind of training, and the more low tolerance is developed. And this is one of the part of psychological training for athletes too. And now go to the third one, anaerobic alactic energy system production. The word alactic means that no lactic acid is produced, so no lactic acid accumulated in muscle tissue, no pain, no interference in intra and intermuscular coordination, no psychological discomfort during this kind of exercising. But how long does this kind of energy system production lasts? Actually not so long, 10-12 seconds maximum, no longer. Examples for this kind of exercises are short running, very short running. Imagine 12 seconds, it's about 60-80 meters with maximum effort. You can run and you will have no lactic acid production and other negative influences, but the duration is very short for utilization of this kind of energy production. And for energy deriving, use not ATP but creatine phosphate, KTP, and another substance. I suppose human physiology and biochemistry, those subjects will give you the proper information and insight in these metabolic reactions and how energy could be derived. But during this lesson we just try to go through some the most important aspects, and few details are accompanied this familiarization. But important comment for all these three energy system productions types is that they are always activated whatever kind of exercise we perform. I understand you that you feel confused right now because there are three of them, and each of them have got some examples, different examples. But the key word in this formulation is uh, predominantly or mostly. If you are performing easy jogging early morning with your heart rate, for example, 120 beats per minute, that means that you utilize aerobics energy system production predominantly, mostly, 80% or even high percentage. But at the same time, you utilize energy from anaerobic lactic and anaerobic lactic, but the percentage is so low that it's not critical for your organism uh, to not to utilize energy from those two. This is the point, you see. And another example, if you, for example, run for 40 seconds, uh, 200 meters, maximum sprinting, maximum running with maximal speed, and you feel how burn your muscles, how hurt your quadriceps, for example. You feel psychological discomfort with this training session, with this kind of exercise. But aerobic energy system involved too, and anaerobic lactic involved in this exercise too, but in much more diminished, limited level. Percentage is very low. Predominantly in this exercise with lactic acid accumulation in your muscles, you use anaerobic lactic energy system production. You see, all three are involved in energy production, but depending on the case, on the situation you are right now, one of them has a leading role for energy production. And one more important issue concerning energy metabolism is what kind of nutrition you are deriving every day, and how it connects and facilitate your training session and recovery. If you are training your aerobic system production, you require mostly substances that can give you energy, ATP, such as glucose or fat. If you are working in a weightlifting gym, you need, of course, high calorie meal, but include in this the source of protein: meat, fish, eggs, milk, beans, nuts, and other very delicious and uh, healthy food products. But not less important to get enough vitamins and minerals to maintain functioning of your organism and cells and tissue regeneration in a proper way. Do not forget also about water. Dehydration is one of the most critical processes that can limit your productivity, not only in gym but in general, in any kind of activity, both physically or mentally. There is a study that demonstrates that lack of water, dehydration, can lead to decrease in skeletal muscle contraction efficiency. That's why it's so important to maintain the balance of water consumption during every day, both when you are recovering and when you are in a gym uh, involved in training session. Always consider how much water you are consuming, and think about vitamins and minerals. A few words about vitamins. Vitamin C is not only responsible for cells regeneration, but it also facilitates your overall feeling and overall fit. Vitamin C can maintain your immune system also in adequate shape, in adequate level, and keep you healthy for even when the seasonal illnesses such as a flu are coming on the region. Of course, other vitamins are important too. Vitamin D, A, E, and others. And what about the food products? Probably you know that omega fat acids are evidently healthy for our cell membranes. Um free oxygen radicals are very harmful for our cell membranes, but if we include in our diet ration omega fat acids, we can protect our cells, and also we can uh, enhance our performance, our productivity in gym or at the general study, and the quality of life could be also increased significantly if we will consider what kind of diet we have, and trying to correct, to make some manipulation with our diet, what kind of products we are eating, maybe make some exchange, avoid some junk food, and instead eat some fresh salad could be one of the steps that can lead us to more productive day and more uh, happy, healthy day. Also, omega fat acids could be derived from the fish, fresh fish that usually habitated in the northern part of the ocean, like a codfish or trout or salmon. This kind of fish is rich with nutrients, minerals, vitamin D, and omega fat acids that so uh, evidently important for our health, especially if you have a intensive workload or load concern with your intellectual work, if you study a lot, in other words, or if you are surrounded with some ecological conditions. And of course these nutrients are important. In other words, um, staying physically active and um, broadening and making our activities much more diverse requires a lot of energy, but uh, deriving this energy and utilizing it in the better way, we need knowledge how energy metabolism goes on, especially when we are physically active. And this is a multi-factor um, phenomena, and to describe it you need get much more knowledge step by step from different perspective. That's why I strongly recommend you to be curious about healthy lifestyle and try to get more information concerning your particular case. If you are going to the sport games gym, you like for example volleyball, you need information not only about sport technique and what kind of energy production predominantly you utilize during training session, but also how to recover faster, what kind of diet, nutrients you need, and how long you should recover from training to training session, and so on. So I expect your questions, and we will have another lecture, probably not online but in live very soon. Anyway, if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate, send it. Down below you will find on the Moodle platform questionnaire answering questions. Correspondingly, you will be get evaluated, and if you have if you have conversation, electronic conversation with your current teacher, so you can address to him or to her to get more consultation concerning this questionnaire. So I wish you the best. See you soon. Bye bye.